passing me by. Take it in, but don't feel nothing. Haven't moved, but I'm in a hurry. Should be concerned, but I don't worry. These thoughts are clouding up.
Yes, that is a camera mod, and that is the Moto Z Play with the Hasselblad Moto mod. Now, Motorola is announcing the brand new Moto Z Play, and we'll get to the Hasselblad mod in a second. But the Moto Z Play looks like, of course, any other Moto Z. It's a little thicker, it's got the Moto Mode connector, and it comes with a 16 megapixel shooter at the back. Records at 4K, powered by a Snapdragon 625 processor with 3 gigs of RAM. Now, the design-wise, very similar, but you can see the back has this nice kind of glossy black finish. Now, supports a SD card expansion up to 2 terabytes. It uses a nano SIM, and guess what? It has a headphone jack in the back. So Motorola now has decided with the Z Play, we'll put a headphone jack in there, but it's still got a USB Type-C ports. Now, I tested it. You can also use that port to listen to music, so either one works. Now, in terms of size, that is the Moto Z Force, and the Moto Z Play. They're pretty much, the Z Force and the Z Play are almost the same size. But the Z Play packs a 3500 10 milliamp battery. Really massive battery in there. They promise about 50 hours of battery life. It's got a 5.5 inch 1080p display, 5 megapixel front facing camera, a fingerprint sensor. Really nice display overall. But that fingerprint sensor is the same as the Z and the Z Force. Really fast and responsive. You can also, of course, lock the device by holding down on the fingerprint sensor, or of course you can open it up again. Again, fast and responsive. I definitely like it. As I mentioned, it is a 5.5 inch 1080p display on the Z Play. Really nice display altogether. You can see the Hulk on there. It's got just really nice vibrant look to it. Now, of course, this is running Android 6.01 with, of course, almost barely no skin, except, of course, the app tray is transparent. Thank you very much, Motorola. Google, please change that on the Nexus. This thing looks and works pretty well, like you would expect from any Moto device, especially the Z line. Fast, responsive, and of course, pretty much close to stock Android appeal. Now, of course, going to the app, into the settings here, the battery life is something I want to talk about. You can see here, it says I'm at 48% with 20 hours of battery left. Motorola promises about 50 hours, and I have to say it pretty much is close to about that 50 hours. Battery life has been fantastic with this device, and if you're looking for a device that can handle that kind of performance, it's great. It's also got turbocharging, so it gives you 10 hours with just 15 minutes of charge because it's got a massive battery and there's some really great performance on there. As I mentioned, Android 6.0.1, and of course you have the camera app. Now the camera app now has a pro mode, which I'll show with the Hasselblad in a second, but the camera app here, you can record in 4K, as I mentioned. You also can use it in Pro mode, and it's a basic camera, and we'll show you some images and video from that camera itself. But the main thing is the Hasselblad Moto mod. This thing comes with a 1 2/3 inch sensor. It's got 10x zoom. A nice xenon flash there. It's got a nice grip body to it. And the only thing it doesn't have is it's got OIS for stills, EIS for video, which is also OIS for video. But it also comes with a camera button and a zoom button on the top, as well as a power button. This connects with the Moto mods. This is probably, again, the best way to use mods on your device. Something LG hasn't found quite useful, but Motorola looks like they have done a fantastic job here. So, of course, connecting your device with the Hasselblad mod. The Hasselblad camera app takes over from the stock camera app. It is a 12 megapixel camera, and of course, it only records at 1080p 30 frames per second. But you also do have the Hasselblad mode. So you've got, of course, capture in with RAW as well as JPEG, black and white, different scenery in there. Black and white photos really come out very nice with this. Now the camera has a Pro mode, as I mentioned. This will work with the stock camera or the Hasselblad camera mod. It gives you functionality to change things like your ISO, your exposure, your white balance, things like that, as well as your shutter speed. So you can do all all that, and it should give you some really wonderful images off this camera mod. But first off, I want to show you video from the Moto Z Play 60 megapixel camera. Then we'll move to the Hasselblad camera recording, and then we'll showcase some stills. All the stills are from the Hasselblad camera mod. So this is video here of the Moto Z Play camera itself. It's a 16 megapixel shooter, and you can see how the camera functions as I walk down. It's got a more bronzy tone to it. The reason why I say that is that the sun, even though it was sunset, it was still more illumination. It kind of gives this very bronze tint to it. Now the camera, of course, has zoom lens of not as powerful as what you would get with a Hasselblad mod, but just showcasing what you have. Now you can see zooming in, it's really shaky. That's the max zoom on the camera. And I'm gonna go back to this water tower so you can see how the Hasselblad camera actually performs, recording video and also zooming in and checking out some details there for you. So this is the Z Play camera, 60 megapixels. Now we move to the Hasselblad camera. You can see this is more of a natural tone. This is what the setting was. You can't customize or play with the exposure. So not exposure, but there's no manual camera settings here for this. So this is what the scene actually looked like. You could get a very nice representation. I can drop down the exposure so I can kill off the sunlight there, and I'm going to take it back to normal. And we're going to walk down again to that water tower and then zoom in so you guys can get a better look at it and see if we can actually read the writing on there. So the one thing I'll say is the camera mod does a really good job with video. I wish it still recorded at 4K, but or at least it did 60 frames per second. Now the zoom is absolutely fantastic. You can see that is of course the lettering on there. We're able to zoom in all the way through. We can zoom in closer. We can see that. I can't read it. It looks like of course graffiti signature, but it's very legible in there. So I definitely like this camera mod just for recording video. Hopefully it gets an update to do 60 frames per second. I would be absolutely happy with this. Now going to stills here, the camera does a really good job with stills, like especially if you're playing out with the pro mode. You can capture things in in its natural light. So I'm using a light source here as a natural light. This is something a little bit much duller, and showcasing just a handbag and just trying to focus in on there, give you almost like a neutral tone to it. Now this is in the subway at night. Now you can see how far the platform is. I'm going to zoom in the next photo just to show you the lettering on the of the subway stop here. This is Delancey Street here in New York City. But again, you can see how much it actually captures. It's pretty clear and it's crisp. It really does a really fantastic job. Of course, here's Batman and Superman playing around again with the pro mode, making it, of course, dropping down my exposure a little bit to make it darker. Now I picked it back up. There is some granulations. It is a 12 megapixel shooter, but the sensor is a 1 2/3 inch sensor. It's pretty nice, so you should get some really solid photos across the board. Now here are some pigeons. I'm actually probably around 15 feet away. I didn't want to disturb them, but I could zoom in to see the whole pigeons. I can even zoom in closer to pick up that one pigeon right there. So the camera does a lot. The camera mod, sorry, does a lot in actually capturing images. This is a nice image here, and the next one is going to be black and white. I really like the way that black and white composure actually handles well with the Hasselblad camera app and camera mod. You can see just the nice even tone across the board here. And then if we switch over to the next photo here, which of course is just a food truck van, or at least a food truck in general, again, just a nice even tone with the contrast from black or white with this camera mod. And also with this photo right here showcasing a building, and the next photo of course is in color to give you good contrast of what this camera mod actually does. So I've been quite impressed with what the Hasselblad camera mod really brings to the table for Moto Z devices. With a third device in, Motorola had the right idea using the magnetic mods for its Moto Z line. So using your Hasselblad mod with your Moto Z Play is hassle-free. And if you wanted to share that mod with a friend who had a Moto Z itself, you can use it also. Or if you had another friend that had a Moto Z Force, they can also use the camera mod or buy theirs or use whatever mods they choose. So it's a much better idea than what LG did with the G5, which was quite a hassle to use. So I also like the fact that there are now more mods coming out for the Moto Z line, and any of these mods will work with your Z Play, your Z Force, as well as your Moto Z. The one thing to mention about the Hasselblad mod is that it also comes with this very nice carrying pouch, although it can be very fingerprint attractive, but doesn't matter. It protects your Hasselblad mod quite well and safely. Now, the other thing to mention is that this device is powered by a Snapdragon 625 processor. So when you're gaming, you actually have no slowdowns. This thing does very well in gaming or all around. I was quite impressed with the way the Moto Z Play handled games. This is Evil Bane, if you guys are wondering, and it does a fairly good job overall with this right here. The Moto Z Play is a really nice device. In terms of performance and what you get, it is solid. That 50-hour battery life, yes, is real. The 10 hours with 50 minutes of charge, that is also very real. The fact that it does that and gives you some really good performance with its Snapdragon 625 processor goes a long way, of course, with 3 gigs of RAM. Now, I have to say, though, that I would have liked the camera to be better, or at least match what you had with the Moto the Z or the Z Force, but I'm still happy with what I get with this device altogether. Now, on the other hand, the Hasselblad camera mod is fantastic, really does a good job, and of course, since it's a camera mod for Motorola, it will work with the Z Play, the Z Force, and the Moto Z. So whatever device you pick and choose, this mod will work with it, and it does a fantastic job with its 10x zoom, some really good recording, the 1/2 inch sensor on there, so you should be quite impressed with what you get from this. Now, I don't have pricing for you guys at this point, but you can expect them to see both devices on the Verizon network. So guys, if you have any questions or any comments, let me know. Otherwise, don't forget to like and share this video. I apologize that this review is a little lengthy, but I wanted to cover details about both the Moto Z Play and the Hasselblad camera mod. So this is Thunder E saying thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment.